Awesome. And Ariel, love to bring you in with Ira and Sais.
Awesome.
How are you, Ariel?
Doing well.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
So many of you know Ariel from the 15 hats that she wears as a consultant and strategist, and great work with Kennedy Center, great work with the Lewis Prize. Did a wonderful session with us last year at the Music Policy Forum Intensive in November. And I'm just so excited to learn about what you're up to with the HBCUs. And let me just kind of turn over to you to set up this part of the conversation, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having us. So I'll keep it very, very short. Back in September, I was invited to help support a group of professors from across the nation. And I've been volunteering with them ever since in recognition that out of more than 100 HBCUs, only 6 have jazz grant degree programs. And only 2 of those schools have master's degree programs. We're really lucky to have Sais Kamalidiin, who is a professor at Howard University, one of those colleges that have a master's degree program in jazz, as well as the founder of the HBCU Jazz Education Initiative, Ira Wiggins, who will hop on to share more about the founding of this organization, all the incredible work that's been underway. Professor Wiggins?
Good afternoon, everyone. For some reason, I can't get the videos.
There you are.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. So I'm the Director of Jazz Studies at North Carolina Central University. Been there since 1986. So the organization, as you've heard, is the historically Black colleges and universities Jazz Education Initiative. It was formed in July 2020 as a result of a questionnaire that was sent around to departments of music, chairs, directors of bands, choral activities, and concerned professional musicians and interested persons in the area of jazz education. As a result of that initial meeting, a board of directors was formed, and subsequent meetings were planned with the mission statement, other documents, website development, and planning for a nonprofit status and expanding our outreach. So the basic mission is to establish more degree programs in HBCUs and to address the shortfalls in the representation of the degree programs and concentration in jazz studies. Secondly, is to establish community training programs for middle and high school students in as many communities that we can foster to educate and train our youth beyond the high school programs, to give them supplementary training in the history and performance of the music, and also just basically the consuming of the music. And lastly, this need is based on historical, cultural importance, the educational impact of music majors and the general student in the population of colleges and universities. And there's also an economic impact because the training of our students will afford them the opportunity to teach jazz in public schools, art schools, colleges and universities, and to gain employment in a variety of music careers in terms of performance, film scoring, arranging for pop artists, jazz artists, and so on. And I would like to bring one of my colleagues, the Vice President of the organization, Professor Sais Kamalidiin. He will speak about the mission statement and provide some statistics concerning the current disparity in the area of music education throughout the nation, including specifically jazz music education. Professor Kamalidiin.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, let me thank you for having us. That's number one. I'm Sais Kamalidiin. I've taught music at Howard University for the past 25 years. I'm the person who teaches the jazz history. I teach the ethnomusicology. And this is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. Oh, and by the way, since you had Mr. Anchors on, I'm one of the programmers at WPFW. So that's all. I'm a firm believer in the power of radio in this community and every community. Our mission statement is critically important because of some very dire facts. Non-HBCU colleges and universities, 120 of them have fully degree granting programs for jazz studies. You can earn a degree, sometimes bachelor's, sometimes master's degree, at non-HBC universities. 30 non-HBC universities have concentrations in jazz studies. Of the approximately 100 HBCUs in the United States of America, 5 have degree granting programs in jazz studies. As you can see, that's a disparity that the situation has gone on for too long in that kind of proportionality. So we have to get the HBCUs who have music programs, sometimes very profusely dispersed, sometimes very successful music programs, but no jazz. Most places have a jazz band or a jazz group, but to get a full service curricula in these universities, they would have to have a program, and we don't have that program. And that's what this organization is dedicated to, alleviating that circumstance.
That's terrific. So where are you in the process of launching the organization? What are sort of the next steps that we should be looking for over the next year or so as the organization comes together?
Okay, we can
I can jump in on that. So, over the course of the past 6 months or so, we've been deep in our research processes and galvanizing community stakeholders to really address this issue within their own HBCUs. We host biweekly meetings with professors across various HBCUs, as well as advocates and artists that see this gap and want to strategize and build some brainstorming around how to move forward. So right now, the biggest portion of our work is in getting the word out, and letting folks know that this gap exists. And in the meantime, we are in the process of incorporating the organization as a 501c3. We're hopeful that we'll be able to launch, the organization in that way within the next 3 to 6 months or so. But in the meantime, we encourage everyone to sign up to our email listserv and be on the lookout for more information as that takes place. But in the course of the conversations that I've had the privilege of being in over the past 6 months, it's just been made abundantly clear how many layers of systemic issues have, really been in place across the music industry that have led us to this place. I mean, I hate to speak ill of arts institutions working at one full time, but I have seen firsthand how just the budget structures within these institutions go towards Western classical music and don't go towards the traditional music that comes from America, from us, from Black Americans in particular. And so ultimately, it's our goal to drive more resources, more attention, and more work behind addressing this need in order to ensure that the legacy of this music continues.
If I can jump in, I think this is an incredibly important program on so many levels. And, I'm also a musicologist. And so I think, as was said, some of these schools might have a jazz band, but to have the full program is where you really it's so that it's not just about the students who are participating and playing an instrument, but really understand the importance of it. I mean, even Congress has said, this is an important national treasure and needs to be in the schools. So it is fascinating to me, like which schools have sort of had jazz programs and which ones don't. I'm curious, the HBCUs, did there used to be more programs and they have shrunk, or is it that we're at a peak of programs that have been in the HBCUs?
There has been a tremendous amount of programs in the past that flourished. Southern University, for example, had a program that was nationally known, but oftentimes the program is the brainchild of one person. And when that person departs from the scene, the program departs also, and there's not a tremendous amount of interest on the part of other faculty to take on that mantle and keep it going. So presently, Southern has no program. But I want to add also, you said you were a historian.
Yes.
The presence of a program guarantees that there's going to be a history component to the education of the student. When you don't have a program and you just have a band, then it's kind of like you're speaking a language, but you don't know what the words mean. And maybe you speak the language quite well, but the legacy, the heritage that goes behind every utterance is lost.
Yeah, and I think that this is so important, just what you said about, it's dangerous to kind of build a program around one person and when that person leaves. So I think that it's so important what you all are doing, because you are creating the infrastructure needed to go from school to school to create a full system.
Right.
Yeah, and one quick note, even along that is, I know, Anna, you teach at Georgetown, and Aaron Broadus used to be the jazz band director, I believe, there. And he was taught at Howard, one of those organizations or schools that have that master's degree programs. He got his master's at Howard. So even that, in this call, right, speaks to the importance of having those spaces and opportunities, because they end up infiltrating all of the spaces we work within. So just wanted to give Aaron Broadus a shout out.
Oh, yeah.
Just to kind of pull together a couple of the, of the themes we've talked about today, I'm really out of my league as a jazz appreciator. And so I really shouldn't say anything about jazz at all, but my very uninformed sort of sense of the community of the jazz industry and of the community is, you need the historical context. Not everybody, but for many people, having that historical context is so critical to really appreciate what you're looking at. Because again, if you read a jazz review in the newspaper, typically it's sort of a catalog of this player played with this person who was influenced by this person. And if you don't know what that means, if you haven't experienced that, you're just reading names. And it's very hard to understand what does that mean in practicality. And it seems like one of the opportunities we talked earlier today about WWOZ going from a terrestrial radio station to a global streaming service, essentially, because they're able to stream, and reach audiences everywhere. We have similar opportunities with digital technology, where again, like if I was, really lucky, to see some high quality, big band stuff when I was in middle school, at the local community center. But if I wanted to then follow up and learn more about that genre, that art form, or those performers, I'd have to go to the record store or the library. Now, if there's something you're curious about, you can get the entire history of recorded music at the click of a button, which gives you opportunities as a fan to kind of dig deeper and then get more into the thing. And so I'm just interested in that connection between how are we leveraging these opportunities for more access and more availability to get into either both the history of music and also what's happening now, and what that means in terms of building the capacity to have the context and the history and the discussion around it. Does that question even make sense?
Certainly it does.
Great.
YouTube is one of the great blessings and great banes of music. The fact that you have so much music at your disposal, as you said, at the click of a button, it deceptively leads a person to take it for granted. You say, "Oh, okay, it's always there for me. I don't have to spend the cost of a recording." In the past, if you wanted music, a specific kind of music, you had to have the money, go to the record store, hope they had it or order it, purchase it, take it home, have quality playback equipment, and then you can enjoy music. Today, the persons are often jaded because they have so many avenues for music that cost them, they perceive, very little. And so if it's free, then I have a tendency to take it. What's the value of this if I can get it so easily, so quickly? And the fact that there's so much information on the internet, but there's very little filter. There's not a way to discern what's really real, what's really important. What should I learn first? What's more esoteric, and I can wait until my knowledge base gets a little more foundational that I can add on. It's very deceptive to a student or even a person who just wants more knowledge. It's good to have a practitioner. It's good to have a person of deep insight who's trained for years to help guide this research, to help guide the understanding. And it's only in a program where the person has been very closely vetted that will allow this person to come in and be an arbiter of taste. Then you can get what we hope is wise counsel as far as understanding this music at a deeper level.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And we've got a terrific question from our friend Catherine Moore, who teaches up at University of Toronto, used to be at NYU. And to kind of summarize the question, she's asking about the sort of relationship between the programs that you're building out and sort of more traditional music business or kind of music economics courses or programs. And do you see, are those kind of intertwining in terms of the business aspect of music and then the jazz pieces that you're building out? Or do you see those as being a little bit separate, or how are you thinking about that balance?
I think Dr. Wiggins has a program like that at Central, so go ahead.
So we do have the law school working with us to for things like intellectual property discussions, copyright, and we do have a business component at the undergraduate level that we're in addition to our master's degree that we're reaching out for. So we're trying to make sure that we're working together and our students have a working knowledge of the business that they're about to enter, so to make sure they are successful in ventures in addition to teaching, and so that they can be well-rounded and make sure they protect their future in terms of the economic impact. So basically, that has to work together for the benefit of the students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Howard University, we have a similar program. It's called Music Business, and we try to give every student who comes through some aspect of what it takes to be legally protected. It's not simply enough in the 21st century to be a high quality artist, to be well versed in the musical aspect. If you don't protect your intellectual property, you will wind up as so many of us did in the earlier decades of the music. Great talent. Everybody acknowledges that you are fantastic. You're a virtuoso, but you are dying penniless with future generations having to pay for a gravestone.
Yep. And Ariel, this is a question I'd like to point to you. And all these issues are so complicated, and there's no easy answers on anything. But I know with your work in the creative youth development field, a lot of the work around sort of connecting teens to kind of cultural practice and sort of using that as platforms for expression and identity and asserting power. And so a lot of that work is rooted in getting out of their way and letting them feel like they've got agency to take art where they want to take art. And I know in jazz, there always feels like there's a little bit of tension between, is it a museum piece? Is it something where we're looking backwards and we're appreciating, John Coltrane, or is it a living form that's going to be innovated on? And I just wonder about, your thoughts, Ariel, and Sais, if you have a thought on this, just the sort of tension of young people with different influences, different ideas, different access to technology, creating on top of, generations of amazing, sort of jazz history. And what does that look like? And do we even still call it jazz in the future?
This is such a fantastic question, and I appreciate you asking it. We've had some really, at times, tough and honest conversations around that. The issue ultimately, though, that I think everyone can agree with is that there's been a huge gap in the education, particularly with Black Americans in this country, in music. And with that, there is this disconnection, quite frankly, between the cultural heritage that we have and the legacy of music that we have in jazz. A lot of people don't recognize that hip hop is born from jazz. A lot of people don't recognize that the banjo is an African instrument. I actually was taught that by Professor Kamalidiin on this call right now. I had no idea until I was 18 years old. And so I think ultimately what we'll want to do is make sure that that legacy of music, that benchmark of music is shared with future generations. And also that we're continuing to embrace all of the various forms that were influenced or born or, cloned even through jazz, right? So that would be my response to that is, we really want to make sure that there's a foundation of knowledge that we continue to share forward as, future generations come up. Professor Kamalidiin?
Part of the challenge is by the time we get the person at 17 or 18 years old, they have had next to no knowledge in an organized fashion imparted to them about our legacy, our musical heritage. And we have in 4 years the daunting but welcomed challenge of giving people a foundation upon which to base their jazz studies degree in this instance. It's a criminal to send a young person and have them learn everything about everybody else, to be taught that what others have done is what should be held most dear. And when you ask them, well, what have you done? What is your contribution to world culture? While it's truly great, in reality, they have no answer. They don't understand what it is that we have contributed to the world, but especially to America.
That is such a great comment to kind of close on, because it's, again, we talk about this in our program every week, but the United States is just so unique in that if you think about, an art form with the power and the importance and the scope of jazz in a different country, it would be treated a lot differently by our institutions, by our funders, by our government. And just in today's, program, just kind of going around the horn, we can get some insight into, if we put more resources towards the future of public and community radio and really allow them to reach the scale that they need. If our philanthropists and the work that Sarah and South Arts and others are doing are able to go to a different scale, if we can see the HBCUs get the level of investment that this administration is talking about and really bringing this up forward, we have an opportunity to really transform how we think about jazz, how people are exposed to it, growing a market for it, appreciation for it. We know where this can go, and it's really up to us collectively if we want to do that. And hopefully, we have some momentum and we're moving in the right direction. But, clearly, the sort of existing commercial marketplace sort of model that we've used for decades is not going to, get the job done. So we need some different thinking, and we need some real resources and innovations and different ways of doing this. Ariel, thank you so much for helping lead this conversation. Professor, it's such an honor to meet you. Professor Wiggins, such an honor to meet you. And obviously, Sarah, it's always great to see you. Thanks again to Dave Anchors. Anna, thank you so for joining and riding shotgun. As always, huge thanks to our producer, Alex Dolvin, who makes this program run so easily and so smoothly. Huge thanks to all of you who are spending part of your Friday with us and are watching on the archive. As always, we welcome and encourage your comments, questions, feedback, very kindly worded constructive criticism. You can always email us at musicpolicyforum@gmail.com. I hope everybody has a safe and productive weekend, and we will see you again next week. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you.